The control room buzzed with activity as technicians watched their screens with worry. Captain James Walker stood with his hands clasped behind his back, eyes locked on the main display. The UES Spectre, humanity's most advanced warship, hung in space like a dark shadow against the stars. "Warp tests starting in 30 seconds, Captain," said a young officer nearby. James nodded but said nothing. His brother Thomas was on that ship. As the commander of the Spectre, Thomas had insisted on leading the first real test of the experimental warp drive. Now James watched from Fleet Command's monitoring station, his stomach tight with worry. 20 seconds. The Spectre was special, not just because it carried his brother, but because it held humanity's newest secret weapon. The ship could hide in plain sight, its hull covered in materials that bent light and sensor readings around it. This stealth technology might finally give humans an edge against the Arcturus Dominion, the alien empire that had pushed mankind to the edge of defeat. 10 seconds. James leaned forward. "Thomas, are you ready?" he asked through the comm. His brother's voice came back clear. "All systems green. We're making history today, James." 5, 4, 3. James held his breath. 2, 1. On the screen, the Spectre's engines flared bright blue. The ship seemed to stretch for a moment, like a rubber band being pulled. Then a flash of light filled the display. And the Spectre was gone. "Warp successful," someone called out. Cheers started to rise around the room. James didn't join them. Something felt wrong. "Where's the exit point?" he demanded. The cheers died down as technicians checked their readings. "Sir, we don't have confirmation of re-entry." James felt cold. "What do you mean? Where's the ship?" "Unknown, sir. It's not appearing at the planned coordinates." For the next 3 hours, James watched as Fleet Command sent ships to search the area. They found nothing. No debris. No sign of the Spectre or its crew of 37 people. His brother was simply gone. 3 years later, James Walker now had an office at Fleet Command. Not because he'd been promoted, but because they didn't know what else to do with him. After the Spectre vanished, the military shut down the project. They called it a failure and buried it under security clearances so high that even James couldn't access the files anymore. His new desk job was punishment for asking too many questions about his brother's ship. James stared at his computer screen without really seeing it. 3 years of pushing papers. 3 years of nightmares about his brother floating forever in the emptiness between stars. A knock on his door broke his thoughts. "Come in," he called. A young woman in a crisp uniform entered and saluted. "Lieutenant Parker, sir." "Admiral Reeves asks to see you immediately." James raised an eyebrow. Admiral Reeves was the head of fleet operations. He didn't call for desk officers without good reason. "Did he say why?" "No, sir, but he said it was urgent." 10 minutes later, James stood outside the Admiral's office, straightening his uniform before the secretary waved him in. Admiral Reeves was a tall man with gray hair cut short and eyes that missed nothing. He didn't stand when James entered, just motioned to the chair across from his desk. "Captain Walker, thank you for coming quickly." "Of course, Admiral." Reeves studied him for a moment, then pressed a button on his desk. The windows turned dark, and a security field hummed to life around the room. "What I'm about to show you is classified at the highest level," Reeves said. He turned his screen so James could see it. The video was grainy and dark. It showed a battle in space, human ships fighting against the angular vessels of the Arcturus Dominion. The humans were losing, their formation breaking under heavy fire. Then something strange happened. Dominion ships began to explode one after another, struck by weapons fire that seemed to come from empty space. James leaned closer. For just a moment, as a nearby explosion lit up the darkness, a ship appeared in the video, a human ship with a familiar outline. Then it was gone, like a ghost. "What am I looking at?" James asked, his heart suddenly pounding. This footage was taken 3 weeks ago at the Battle of Proxima Colony, Reeves said. Notice anything interesting? James swallowed hard. That ship, it looked like the Spectre. Reeves nodded. That's what our analysts think too. But the Spectre was lost 3 years ago. Could it be another stealth ship? Maybe they continued the program secretly. No, all stealth projects were shut down after the Spectre disappeared. There are no other ships like it in our fleet. James stared at the frozen image. Then what is it? Reeves sighed. We don't know. But this isn't the first sighting. He brought up more videos, all showing the same thing. A battle going badly for human forces, then the mysterious ship appearing from nowhere, attacking Dominion vessels, and vanishing again. It only targets the enemy, Reeves said, never attacks our ships. In fact, he showed one final video. This is from last week. Colony on New Eden. The Dominion was about to overrun it when our ghost ship appeared and destroyed their entire attack force. James felt a spark of hope for the first time in years. It could be them. It could be the Spectre. Maybe. But that's not the strangest part. Reeves pointed to the screen again. Look at the attack pattern. The way it strikes from blind spots, then circles back. James recognized it immediately. That's Thomas's strategy. He developed it at the academy. Exactly. Reeves leaned back in his chair. Captain Walker, I need someone to find this ship. Someone who won't broadcast what they're doing. Someone who might recognize patterns that others would miss. You're giving me a ship. James couldn't hide his surprise. The UES Horizon. Small, fast frigate. Good sensors. Officially, you'll be running patrol duty along the outer colonies. And unofficially, find our ghost ship, determine if it's the Spectre. And if it is, Reeves's eyes were hard. Find out where it's been for 3 years, and why it's back now. James stood straighter. When do I leave? Tomorrow. Pick your crew carefully. You'll need people who can keep secrets. As James turned to leave, Reeves called after him. One more thing, Captain. Sir, if it is your brother out there, remember your duty to Fleet Command. James nodded stiffly and left the office, his mind racing. After 3 years of desk duty and nightmares, he finally had a mission. He was going to find the ghost ship. And if it was Thomas, if his brother had somehow survived out there all this time, James was going to bring him home. No matter what Fleet Command wanted. The UES Horizon cut through space, its engines humming with power. Captain James Walker stood on the bridge, watching the stars streak by as they traveled at high speed. It had been 2 weeks since Admiral Reeves gave him this mission, and so far, they had found nothing but cold trails. Captain, we're approaching the Theta system, said Lieutenant Mark Davis from the pilot's seat. James nodded. Slow to half speed. Lieutenant Hayes, start your scans. Anna Hayes was the best sensor specialist in the fleet. James had specifically requested her for this mission. She had a gift for finding things that didn't want to be found. Yes, sir, she said, her fingers dancing over her console. Starting deep space scans now. The Horizon had visited 2 other systems already, following reports of the ghost ship. Each time they arrived too late. All they found were the remains of Dominion ships and strange energy readings that no one could explain. The crew was getting restless. 20 officers and crew members, all handpicked by James, all told only that they were hunting for an unknown vessel. He hadn't shared his suspicions about the Spectre with anyone except his first officer, Commander Bell. Captain, Hayes called out suddenly. I'm picking up unusual quantum disturbances, similar to what we found in the other systems. James moved to her station. Show me. The screen displayed wave patterns that seemed to ripple and shift in impossible ways. It's like echoes, Hayes said, as if something passed through normal space and left ripples behind. How old? Hayes studied her readings. Fresh, less than 6 hours. James felt a spark of excitement. They were just here. Can you track the disturbance? Hayes bit her lip. Concentrating. Maybe. The pattern seems to be moving toward the mining colony on Theta IV. Set course, full speed, James ordered. Maybe this time, they would be fast enough. Meanwhile, in a place that wasn't quite normal space, the UES Spectre drifted silently. Commander Thomas Walker looked out through the ship's viewports, but what he saw wasn't stars. It was a shifting, swirling darkness streaked with ribbons of blue light. The void between dimensions, their home for the past 3 years. Status report, he said, his voice rough from tiredness. His science officer, Dr. Ben Miller, looked up from his station. Phase stabilizers holding at 40%. Weapons and engines at 75%. We can make one more jump into normal space before we need to rest the systems. Thomas nodded. The Spectre and its crew existed in a nightmare state. When their experimental warp drive malfunctioned 3 years ago, it didn't destroy them as everyone thought. Instead, it trapped them in a partial phase shift, caught between normal space and somewhere else. They could see the real universe. They could even affect it by briefly shifting closer to normal space. But they couldn't fully return, not without the ship tearing itself apart. "Sir," called his communications officer, "we're picking up distress signals from the mining colony on Theta IV. Dominion ships are attacking." Thomas straightened in his chair. "How many?" 3 warships. The colony has minimal defenses." Thomas didn't hesitate. "Battle stations. Prepare for phase shift." The crew moved quickly to their positions. After 3 years, they operated like a perfect machine. They had learned to use their curse as a weapon. The Spectre could appear from nowhere, strike with deadly accuracy, and vanish before the enemy could respond. "Remember," Thomas said, "we hit fast, and we hit hard. No lingering in normal space longer than 2 minutes." The last time they stayed too long, the phase shift nearly collapsed completely. Half the ship started to materialize in normal space, while the other half remained shifted. 5 crew members died before they managed to stabilize. Phase shift in 3, 2, 1. The swirling void outside the viewports faded, replaced by the black of space dotted with stars. The colony of Theta IV appeared ahead, a cluster of lights on a small moon. 3 angular Dominion warships hung above it, firing energy weapons at the surface. "They haven't seen us yet," said the tactical officer. "Stealth systems holding. Target the lead ship's engines," Thomas ordered. "Fire when ready." The Spectre's weapons charged silently. Then beams of energy lanced out, striking the Dominion ship's propulsion system. The alien vessel lurched, its engines flaring and then dying. The other 2 ships immediately began scanning for the attacker. "Moving to position Alpha," said the pilot, guiding the Spectre to a new firing position. Thomas watched the timer on his console. 1 minute 15 seconds in normal space. Fire on target 2. More energy beams shot out, slicing through the second Dominion ship's weapons array. It spun wildly, disabled but not destroyed. "Sir," the science officer called, "I'm detecting a human ship entering the system. Fast frigate, UES classification." Thomas felt a strange jolt. "Fleet sent help. That's unusual." 30 seconds left in normal space, warned the tactical officer. "Target the 3rd ship's bridge and fire." The Spectre's weapons struck with perfect accuracy. The last Dominion ship went dark, drifting harmlessly away from the colony. 10 seconds, called the science officer. "Sir, the human ship is hailing all frequencies. They're asking for the Spectre by name." Thomas froze. "What?" "Phase shift failing," warned the tactical officer. "We need to go now." Thomas wanted to stay, to find out who knew they existed, but the ship was already shuddering around them. "Return to void," he ordered reluctantly. The stars began to fade as the phase shift pulled them back into the in-between place. The last thing Thomas saw was the human ship growing larger in their viewports, racing toward them as if desperate to make contact. Then they were gone, back to their prison of swirling darkness and blue light. On the bridge of the horizon, James Walker stared at the empty space where, for just a moment, he'd seen a familiar shape. "Did you get a clear scan?" he demanded. Lieutenant Hayes shook her head. "Not completely, sir. But what I did get." She looked up with wide eyes. "It matches the Spectre's configuration. And there's more. The quantum readings suggest the ship isn't fully in our dimension. It's partially phased out of normal space. So that's how they appear and disappear," James whispered. "They're trapped between dimensions." Hayes nodded slowly. "The crew could still be alive in there, Captain, but I don't know how we could reach them." James stared at the now empty space. "We just missed them," he said quietly. Then, with new determination, "But we're getting closer. Next time, we'll be ready." He turned to Commander Bell. "Send a message to Admiral Reeves. Tell him we've confirmed it's the Spectre, and tell him we need a quantum physicist, the best he can find." For the first time in 3 years, James felt real hope. His brother wasn't dead. He was lost, caught in some kind of dimensional trap, and James was going to find a way to bring him home. Dr. Eliza Morgan was not what James had expected. The quantum physicist was young, barely 30, with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind. She had arrived on the horizon by special transport just 3 days after James's report to Admiral Reeves. "So you're telling me," she said, studying the data on the screen in the ship's conference room, "that the Spectre is trapped in a partial phase shift between dimensions." "That's our best guess," James replied. "Can you help us reach them?" Dr. Morgan frowned. "Maybe. But first I need to understand exactly what happened to them." Before she could continue, the ship's alarm blared. Commander Bell's voice came over the speaker. "Captain, to the bridge. Emergency." James and Dr. Morgan rushed to the bridge. The main screen showed a message from Fleet Command. Priority 1. "The shipyards at Arcturus Base are under attack," Bell explained. "Massive Dominion fleet. They came out of nowhere." James felt cold. Arcturus Base was humanity's primary shipyard. If it fell, the war could be lost in a single day. "How far are we?" he asked. 2 hours at maximum speed. Set course immediately." As the horizon changed direction, Lieutenant Hayes looked up from her console. "Sir, Arcturus Base is where they built the Spectre." James nodded slowly. "My brother will know that too." The void around the Spectre seemed darker than usual. Thomas stared at the readings on his console with growing alarm. "Confirm this," he ordered. His tactical officer nodded grimly. "Confirmed, sir. The Dominion has launched a surprise attack on Arcturus Base. 4 dreadnoughts, 12 cruisers, and at least 30 smaller vessels." Thomas stood up. "How did they gather such a force without our intelligence detecting it?" "Unknown, sir, but the base defenses won't hold against those numbers." The science officer spoke up. "Sir, Arcturus Base is—" "I know what it is," Thomas cut him off. "It's where we were built, and it's the heart of the fleet's shipbuilding capacity." The crew fell silent, all thinking the same thing. If Arcturus Base fell, humanity might lose the war. Thomas made his decision. "Prepare for phase shift. All power to weapons and engines." "Sir," the science officer protested, "our systems haven't fully recovered from the last shift. If we push them now—" "I know the risks, Doctor," Thomas said quietly. "But if we don't act, there might not be a humanity to return to." No one argued further. They prepared the ship, each person silently accepting what might be their final mission. Phase shift in 3, 2, 1. The battle at Arcturus Base was already lost when the horizon arrived. The massive Dominion fleet had broken through the outer defenses and was closing on the shipyards. The few remaining human ships fought bravely, but they were hopelessly outnumbered. "Take us in," James ordered. "Target the nearest cruiser." "Sir," Commander Bell said quietly, "there are too many. We can't make a difference." James knew Bell was right, but he couldn't just watch. "We have to try." All weapons ready. Before the horizon could fire, a Dominion cruiser near the center of their formation suddenly exploded. Then another, and another. "What's happening?" James demanded. Lieutenant Hayes leaned forward over her sensors. "Sir, it's them. The Spectre is here." The ghost ship was barely visible, a shimmer in space that moved with impossible speed. It fired from point-blank range, its weapons tearing through Dominion ships before they could respond. "They're drawing the enemy's fire away from the base," Commander Bell said with awe. James watched the battle unfold. He recognized his brother's tactics, striking at the heart of the enemy formation, creating confusion. But something was wrong. The Spectre's movements were becoming erratic. Occasionally, parts of the ship would flicker into full visibility before fading again. "Their phase shift is destabilizing," Dr. Morgan said, studying Hayes' sensor readings. "They're pushing their systems too hard." James made a decision. "Lieutenant Hayes, can you set up a signal on an oscillating frequency? I want to try something." "What kind of frequency, sir?" James gave her a specific pattern of numbers. Hayes looked confused but entered them into her console. "What are you doing?" Dr. Morgan asked. "When we were kids," James explained, "my brother and I made up a code to send messages to each other. If he's really on that ship, he'll recognize it." Hayes activated the signal. It pulsed outward, a simple pattern repeating over and over in the chaos of battle. On the bridge of the Spectre, alarms were blaring. The phase shift was failing, systems overloading throughout the ship. "We can't maintain this much longer," the science officer warned. 2 minutes at most before catastrophic failure. Thomas gripped his chair as the ship shuddered around him. They had destroyed 3 dreadnoughts and 7 cruisers, but it wasn't enough. The Dominion forces were still too strong. "Sir," the communications officer called out suddenly, "I'm picking up a strange signal. It's not a standard fleet pattern." "Ignore it," Thomas ordered. "Focus on." "But sir, it's—" The officer paused, listening to the signal through his headset. His eyes widened. "Sir, it's coming from that human frigate, the one that tried to contact us before. And it's in Morse code. Old Earth Morse code." Thomas froze. "What does it say?" The officer listened. "It's just repeating the same thing. 3-7-9 to 2128. Thomas felt as if all the air had left his lungs. 3-7-9 to 2128. The numbers he and James had used as children when they wanted to verify a message truly came from one another. "It's my brother," he whispered. For a moment, the hopelessness of their situation lifted. James was out there, looking for him, trying to help. "Sir, what should we do?" his tactical officer asked. Thomas straightened. "Adjust our phase harmonics to match that signal's frequency. Let them see us clearly, just for a moment." "But sir—" "Do it." The officer complied. The Spectre's phase shift altered, bringing the ship briefly into fuller alignment with normal space. On the horizon, Lieutenant Hayes gasped. "Captain, the Spectre is becoming more visible. They're responding to our signal." James stepped forward, staring at the screen. For one clear moment, he could see the Spectre in all its details. The sleek hull, the distinctive profile. And on the bridge, a figure standing tall, looking directly toward them. "Thomas," James said quietly. Then the ship flickered and faded, returning to its ghost-like state. But something had changed. The Spectre's attack pattern shifted, now working in clear coordination with the human defenders. James turned to Dr. Morgan. "Tell me you can find a way to bring them back." Dr. Morgan was already working at a console, her fingers flying over the controls. "I think I understand what happened to them now. We can't fully restore them. The damage to their dimensional state is too severe. But maybe we can talk to them." As the battle raged around them, a small hope was born. The brothers had found each other across the void between dimensions, and somehow James would find a way to bring the ghost ship home. The battle at Arcturus Base ended in a narrow victory for humanity. With the Spectre's help, the Dominion fleet had been forced to retreat, but the cost was high: 3 defense platforms destroyed and nearly 20% of the shipyard damage. On the horizon, James met with Admiral Reeves via secure communication. The Admiral's hologram stood in the ship's conference room, his face grim. "So it's true," Reeves said after hearing James's report. "The Spectre survived, and your brother is still commanding it." "Yes, sir," James replied. "But they're trapped in some kind of dimensional shift. Dr. Morgan is working on a way to communicate with them." Reeves was silent for a moment. "Walker, there's something you should know. Intelligence reports suggest the Dominion has taken a special interest in your ghost ship. They've formed a hunter-killer group specifically to trap it." James felt cold. "Who's leading it?" "Commander Krell." The name hung in the air like a threat. Krell was infamous among human forces, a brilliant tactician known for his ruthlessness. He had destroyed more human ships than any other Dominion commander. "Give me everything you have on Krell's movements," James said, "and I need more resources for Dr. Morgan's work." Reeves nodded. "You'll have it. But Walker, be careful. There are people in Fleet Command who see the Spectre as a weapon, not as a ship with a crew to be rescued." After the call ended, James went to find Dr. Morgan. She had converted a small lab on the horizon into her workspace, filling it with equipment rushed from Fleet Command. "Any progress?" he asked. Dr. Morgan looked up from her calculations. "Yes, actually. I think I've figured out what happened to them." She pointed to a complex diagram on her screen. When their warp drive malfunctioned, it didn't just move them through space. It shifted them partially into another dimension, a parallel space that overlaps with ours. "Can we get them back?" Morgan hesitated. "Not completely, no. They've been in this state too long. The ship and its crew have become integrated with this dimensional space. Pulling them fully back would kill them." James's hope dimmed. "So they're trapped forever?" "I didn't say that," Morgan replied. "We can't bring them home. But we might be able to establish stable communication, maybe even help them control their shifts between dimensions." Before James could respond, Lieutenant Hayes's voice came over the speakers. "Captain, to the bridge, urgent." When James arrived, Hayes was bent over her console. "Sir, we're picking up a distress call from the research station on Vega Prime. They're under attack." "Dominion forces?" "Yes, sir. And the attack pattern matches Commander Krell's known tactics." James's jaw tightened. "He's trying to draw out the Spectre." "Set course for Vega Prime. Maximum speed." In the void between dimensions, the Spectre drifted while its crew made repairs. The battle at Arcturus base had pushed their systems to the breaking point. They needed time to recover. Thomas sat in his quarters, staring at an old photo of himself and James. His brother had found him. After 3 years thinking they were forgotten, help was finally coming. The intercom buzzed. "Commander," his first officer said, "we're detecting the Dominion attack at Vega Prime. Research station under heavy fire." Thomas frowned. "That's odd. Vega Prime isn't strategically valuable." "No, sir, but the station is working on phase shift technology, similar to our own drive system." Thomas understood immediately. "It's a trap. They're trying to draw us out." He thought for a moment. How many civilian personnel at the station? Over 200 researchers and support staff. Thomas closed his eyes briefly. Trap or not, they couldn't let civilians die. "Prepare for phase shift," he ordered. "But we go in carefully this time." The Horizon arrived at Vega Prime to find the research station already under heavy bombardment. 3 Dominion cruisers circled it, methodically destroying its defenses. "No sign of the Spectre yet," Hayes reported. "They'll come," James said confidently. "Target the lead cruiser and fire. Let's give them some help." The Horizon moved into attack position, its weapons blazing. But it was a small ship against 3 cruisers. The Dominion vessels quickly turned their attention to this new threat. Shields at 60%. Commander Bell called out as the ship shook from enemy fire. "Stay on them," James ordered. "The Spectre will." "Sir," Hayes interrupted. "Energy readings off our port side." "It's them." The ghost ship appeared suddenly, its weapons tearing into the nearest Dominion cruiser. The enemy vessel spun away, crippled, but something was wrong. As soon as the Spectre appeared, the remaining Dominion ships changed formation. They activated strange devices on their hulls that emitted a purple-blue field. "Captain, they're generating some kind of phase disruption field," Dr. Morgan said, her eyes wide with alarm. "They're trying to force the Spectre to fully materialize." On the main screen, James could see the Spectre becoming more and more visible as the disruptor field surrounded it. The ghost ship tried to flee, but the field followed it, preventing it from shifting away. "They're trapped," James realized. "Target those disruptor devices." The Horizon fired everything it had, but the Dominion ships were ready. They blocked the attacks while maintaining the field around the Spectre. "Sir," Hayes said urgently, "I'm detecting a transmission from the Spectre. It's weak, but put it through." The bridge speakers crackled with static. Then a voice, distorted but recognizable, came through. "James, can you hear me? This is Thomas Walker of the UES Spectre." James felt his heart leap. "Thomas, we hear you. We're trying to help." "Listen carefully," Thomas's voice said through the static. "The disruptors are forcing us into normal space. We can't take much more." "But Dr. Morgan's signal, the one you sent during the battle, it showed us something." "What did it show you?" James asked. "We can communicate on that frequency. It matches our phase state somehow." There was a pause. Then, "James, you need to know what happened to us." As the Horizon continued firing at the Dominion ships, Thomas explained quickly. The experimental drive hadn't failed. It had worked too well, pushing them partially out of normal space. For 3 years, they had fought a guerrilla war against the Dominion, unable to return home, but unwilling to abandon humanity. "The crew chose to stay and fight," Thomas said. "We could have tried to return earlier, but it would have meant losing our advantage." The transmission began breaking up as the Dominion disruptor field intensified. "Thomas, hold on," James called. "Dr. Morgan has a plan. We can help stabilize your phase shifts." "Too late for that," Thomas replied, his voice fading. "But maybe not too late to win this fight. James, remember the lake at home? How we'd skip stones?" "Yes, but what?" "Sometimes you need to embrace the bounce, not fight it." The transmission cut off. On the screen, the Spectre was now fully visible, caught in the Dominion's trap. But instead of trying to escape, the ghost ship was changing. Its engines glowed with a strange blue-white light. "What are they doing?" Commander Bell asked. Dr. Morgan studied her readings. "They're not trying to resist the phase shift anymore." Her eyes widened. "They're pushing further into it." The Spectre began to shimmer, becoming transparent. The Dominion disruptors, designed to force the ship into normal space, couldn't stop it from moving in the opposite direction, deeper into the other dimension. What happened next would be debated by fleet tacticians for years to come. The ghost ship, now barely visible, passed directly through one of the Dominion cruisers. It moved through the enemy vessel as if it weren't there, and left behind what looked like glowing blue charges inside the ship's vital systems. When the Spectre emerged on the other side, the Dominion cruiser exploded from within. "My God," James whispered. "They've weaponized their condition." The battle turned quickly after that. The remaining Dominion forces, faced with an enemy that could move through their ships at will, retreated in disarray. And the Spectre, still shimmering at the edge of visibility, hung in space near the horizon. 2 brother ships reunited across the void between dimensions. 2 weeks after the battle at Vega Prime, the Horizon and the Spectre drifted side by side in deep space, far from any star system. Between them, they had created a unique communication system, allowing the brothers to talk regularly despite the dimensional barrier. "How's it feel to be famous?" James asked with a smile. Thomas's hologram flickered slightly in the Horizon's conference room. Famous. Is that what we are now? The ghost ship that saved Arcturus Base. The phantom vessel that can move through enemy ships. Yes, you're the talk of the fleet. Thomas shook his head. We just did what we had to do. During these past 2 weeks, Dr. Morgan had worked tirelessly with the Spectre's science team. They had made real progress in understanding the ship's unique state. They can't come home, Morgan explained to Admiral Reeves when he visited the Horizon. But they can control their shifts between dimensions now. They can appear in normal space for up to 1 hour before needing to return to the void. Reeves nodded slowly. And this new ability, moving through solid objects. It's dangerous, Morgan said. Each time they do it, they risk destabilizing their phase state completely. But yes, they can pass through solid matter when they push deeper into the shift. The Admiral was silent for a long moment. Fleet Command has made a decision, he said finally. The Spectre and its crew are being officially recognized as a special unit. Their mission: continue what they've been doing. Hit the Dominion where they least expect it. James frowned. So you're just going to leave them trapped in that in-between place forever? It's not what any of us wanted, Reeves said quietly. But according to Dr. Morgan, it's the only way they can survive now. Later, when James told Thomas about the decision, his brother simply nodded. We knew this was coming, Thomas said. And honestly, James, we've made peace with it. This is our life now. At least we're making a difference. James wished he could reach across the void and grasp his brother's shoulder. Instead, he simply said, You're doing more than making a difference. You're changing the course of the war. Commander Krell stood before the Dominion High Command, his tall, angular form rigid with anger. The human ghost ship cannot be allowed to continue operating, he said. It has destroyed 12 of our vessels in the past month alone. None of them even had time to send a distress signal. The Supreme Commander, the highest authority in the Dominion military, leaned forward. Your disruptor technology failed, Krell. What do you propose now? Krell's yellow eyes narrowed. The humans have found a way to communicate with their ghost ship. They must have a link, a frequency they use. Find that link, and we can track them. And then what? Your reports say the ship can now move through solid matter, which is why I've developed this, Krell said, activating a hologram. It showed a massive weapon, unlike anything the Dominion had built before. The dimensional collapser. It doesn't just attack ships in normal space. It creates a field that collapses all dimensional states into one. The Supreme Commander studied the weapon. Will it work? There's only one way to find out, Krell replied. But first, we need to find their communication frequency. 1 month later, the Horizon was escorting a supply convoy when they received a strange message from Fleet Command. Emergency recall to Earth, James read from the screen. All available ships. Dominion fleet approaching solar system. Commander Bell paled. They're attacking Earth. They've never been bold enough to strike at the home system. James felt cold dread settling in his stomach. Set course immediately, and send a message to the Spectre on our secure channel. The journey to Earth took 3 days at maximum speed. When they arrived, they found the largest gathering of human ships James had ever seen. Over 200 vessels forming a defensive line between the approaching Dominion fleet and Earth. The Spectre was already there, waiting at the edge of the battle formation, a shimmer against the blackness of space. Status report, James called as the Horizon took its position. Dominion fleet approaching from the outer system, came the reply. 47 ships, including something huge at their center. Long-range scans can't identify it. James opened a channel to the Spectre. Thomas, are you seeing this? We see it, his brother replied. Something's not right, James. Why attack with only 47 ships? They must know they're outnumbered. Before James could respond, Lieutenant Hayes called out from her station. Sir, I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the large ship at the center of their formation. It's targeting our communications frequency. Dr. Morgan, who had remained aboard the Horizon to continue her research, rushed to the bridge. "They've found our link to the Spectre," she said. "They're using it to..." A blinding flash of energy erupted from the massive ship at the center of the Dominion fleet. It wasn't directed at the human battle line, but at the space where the Spectre shimmered. "Thomas," James shouted, "get out of there." But it was too late. The energy beams struck the area around the ghost ship, creating a strange distortion in space. The Spectre became fully visible, trapped in what looked like a bubble of warped reality. "What is that?" Commander Bell asked in horror. "A dimensional collapser," Dr. Morgan said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's forcing all dimensional states to merge. The Spectre can't phase shift away." On the main screen, James watched as the Dominion fleet began to advance, focusing their fire on the now vulnerable ghost ship. "All ships, protect the Spectre," James ordered. The human fleet moved forward, engaging the enemy. But Thomas had other ideas. "James," his voice came through, distorted by the dimensional field around his ship. "Listen to me. We can't escape this trap, but maybe we can use it." "What are you talking about?" "The collapser is merging all dimensional states. That goes both ways." Suddenly James understood. "You're going to push even deeper into the shift." "All the way," Thomas confirmed. "If we can't escape, we'll go through." Right into the heart of their fleet. The battle raged around them as the Spectre began to glow with an intense blue light. The ship was straining against the dimensional collapser, not trying to escape it, but using it to push to an extreme state never attempted before. "It's working," Dr. Morgan said in amazement. "They're reaching a state of quantum superposition, existing in multiple places at once." On the screen, the Spectre began to multiply. Ghost images of the ship appeared throughout the Dominion fleet, each one semi-transparent but deadly. The original ship remained trapped in the collapser field, but these echoes moved freely. The Dominion fleet fell into chaos as ghost versions of the Spectre attacked from within their formation. Ships exploded one after another as the phantom vessels passed through them, leaving destruction in their wake. At the center of the enemy fleet, the dimensional collapser began to overload, unable to contain the Spectre's extreme phase shift. The massive weapon exploded in a burst of energy that consumed nearby Dominion ships. "They did it," James whispered. When the light faded and the battle ended, the remaining Dominion ships were fleeing. The human fleet had won a decisive victory, but of the Spectre there was no sign. "Thomas," James called over their communication channel. "Thomas, respond." Silence answered him. For 3 days, they searched the battlefield, looking for any trace of the ghost ship. James refused to give up, even when Fleet Command ordered the Horizon to return to Earth. Then, on the 4th day, as the Horizon made one final sweep of the area, Lieutenant Hayes straightened at her console. "Sir, I'm picking up a signal. It's faint, but it's them." At the very edge of their sensor range, a familiar shimmer appeared. The Spectre, damaged but intact, phased partially into normal space. "Thomas," James called hopefully. Static answered him at first. Then, "James, can you hear me?" The bridge erupted in cheers. Thomas explained that the extreme phase shift had sent them far beyond the void they normally inhabited. It had taken days to find their way back to normal space. "But we found something out there," Thomas added. "There are more dimensions than we ever imagined, James. And in one of them, we discovered how to control our shifts completely." "You mean we can come home now?" "Not permanently. We still need to return to the void to rest. But we can visit. We can touch normal space again." 2 weeks later, in orbit around Earth, the crew of the Spectre stepped onto solid ground for the first time in over 3 years. They stayed for only an hour before they had to return to their ship and the void between dimensions. But it was enough. They were no longer lost. They were no longer just a ghost warship that shouldn't exist. They were heroes. They were family. And they had found their way home.